The night was unusually still in the Johnson neighborhood, the kind of quiet that made every distant sound stretch into sharp, threatening clarity. Marcus Johnson lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his modest home, the faint hum of the streetlights, outside barely audible over the pounding of his heart. Something was off. Rex, his massive German shepherd, shifted at the foot of the bed, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Marcus's military instincts, honed over years in dangerous terrains, flared immediately. He didn't need to see or hear to know that someone, or something, was out there. He sat up slowly, muscles coiled, ears straining to catch the faintest clue of a threat. A flicker of movement outside the window caught the corner of his eye. Too deliberate, too calculated. Marcus froze, his breath shallow. A sharp chemical scent drifted in through the slightly open window. Gasoline! Accelerant! Panic bubbled in his chest, but his training held it down. He wasn't going to run blind. Not now. Rex barked once, loud and commanding. It echoed like a warning. Marcus rubbed his face, trying to shake the unease. He whispered, "It's okay, boy. Probably just a raccoon or a drunk neighbor." But even as he said it, his gut told him otherwise. This was no random night disturbance. A week ago, things had started quietly. Petty complaints about his lawn, his flagpole, even the way Rex patrolled the yard. Karen Whitefield, the HOA president, had made it her personal mission to make his life miserable. Marcus had laughed off the small jabs at first, remembering the lessons from his years in the service: patience, endurance, discipline. But Karen didn't stop. The rumors spread through the neighborhood, whispers about Marcus being difficult or troublesome, and she had eyes everywhere. Rex padded closer, nudging Marcus's arm with his cold nose. Marcus's hand went to the dog's head, scratching behind the ears. The bond between man and canine wasn't just companionship. It was survival. Rex had been trained alongside him in the military, in exercises that demanded complete trust. Tonight, that trust was more vital than ever. Marcus crept to the window, peering into the moonlit yard. A shadow moved near the garage. He couldn't make out details, only a figure. Slender, deliberate. A presence that didn't belong. His mind raced. Karen? Could it be her? She had always been petty, vindictive. But this? Arson? The thought made his stomach twist. He grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand and slipped on his boots, the cold floor shocking his feet awake. Rex growled again, low and menacing. Together, they moved toward the living room, Marcus's hand resting on the bat he kept by the door. Tonight, he wasn't just protecting property. He was protecting his life, his memories, everything he'd built after returning from overseas. Outside, the wind picked up, whispering through the trees like a warning. Marcus strained to hear any sound, any clue, but the night had swallowed it all. Then, a sudden snap of twigs near the backyard fence. Rex barked furiously, the sound echoing through the neighborhood. Lights flicked on in some nearby houses, but no one emerged. The shadow darted again, vanishing behind the garage. Marcus's pulse quickened. He called softly, "Who's out there?" No response. Only the rustle of leaves. Only the quiet menace of the unknown. A sudden memory hit him. Karen's last HOA meeting. The way she had sneered at him. Her words laced with barely disguised hatred. "Some people just don't belong here," she had said, eyes glinting. "I'll make sure everyone knows who's in charge." It had been chilling then. Now, It felt like prophecy. He moved toward the back door, flashlight in one hand, bat in the other. Rex stayed close, his body tense, ready to strike at the slightest provocation. Marcus knew that if Karen, or anyone, was out there, she wouldn't expect resistance from a man like him. She thought he was quiet, compliant, predictable. She had no idea how disciplined he had become in the military, how survival instinct wasn't just training, it was part of who he was. As he reached the E-Tribune sliding glass door, a sudden flare of light caught his eye. Tiny sparks near the corner of the garage. His heart sank. Fuel-soaked rags? He didn't wait to think. "Rex, get back!" But the dog didn't move. His canine partner wasn't just following orders, he was assessing, protecting, anticipating. The first flicker of flame erupted. Marcus lunged for the door, screaming, "Fire! Get out!" The heat hit immediately, acrid smoke curling around the edges of the yard. Rex barked and lunged forward, alert, guarding Marcus even as the flames began to lick the wooden siding of the house. Neighbors began to stir, some stepping out in nightwear, their expressions a mixture of horror and confusion. Marcus barely noticed them. His entire world was consumed by smoke, flame, and the urgent need to save what he could. His life, his memories, the tangible pieces of decades of struggle and triumph, all threatened by a deliberate act. He grabbed Rex's leash and bolted through the side gate, coughing as smoke stung his lungs. Behind him, the house, his home, was beginning to collapse under the heat. Flames danced, consuming everything in their path, mocking the peaceful life he had fought so hard to reclaim. After war, and somewhere in the shadows, Marcus could swear he saw a figure watching, silhouetted. Against the firelight, Karen Whitefield perhaps, smiling a cold, satisfied smile. As he crouched in the street, chest heaving, watching his home burn, Marcus made a silent vow. Whoever did this would face justice. Not out of revenge, not out of hate, but because he had fought for a world where right mattered more than fear. And he would not let anyone destroy that. Not even her. The night had changed. The quiet veteran's life was over. And in its place rose something far more dangerous. The resolve of a man who had seen the worst humanity had to offer. And survived. The morning after the fire, the neighborhood felt different. Tense. Uneasy. As if the smoke from Marcus Johnson's burning home had settled into every lawn, every streetlight, every glance between neighbors. Marcus sat on the curb with Rex at his side. The German shepherd's coat streaked with soot, ears pricked at every distant noise. His body ached from the night's chaos, his mind replaying the images of flames devouring his home, memories turning to ash before his eyes. The fire department had been thorough. They cordoned off the street, investigators in white suits examining the wreckage, snapping photos, collecting samples. Marcus watched silently, heart heavy, yet determined. The smell of charred wood and melted plastic clung to his clothes. Even Rex seemed subdued. The dog's usual commanding presence muted by the sheer scale of the destruction. Karen Whitefield, as expected, appeared shortly after. She arrived in her luxury sedan, immaculate as ever, sunglasses shielding her eyes, a mask of faux concern plastered across her face. "Marcus, I can't believe this happened," she said, voice dripping sympathy. But there was something calculated in the way she spoke, in the way she glanced at the smoldering ruins of his house. "Do you want to tell the investigators everything you know?" Marcus asked coldly, his voice tight. "Or are you just here To make sure your neighbors think you're innocent? Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. I'm worried about you, Marcus. I mean, this is terrible. It's terrible? Marcus cut her off. You've been waiting for this moment, haven't you? Every complaint, every rumor, every small attack. It was all practice for tonight. Her expression flickered, almost imperceptibly. But she didn't deny it. Instead, she adjusted her sunglasses and said, Marcus, this is no time for accusations. Let the police handle this. Marcus's jaw tightened. He knew Karen's type well. The entitled, manipulative predator who always tried to turn situations in her favor. She had power, influence, connections. But Marcus had something else: patience, training, and the resolve that came from surviving horrors most people couldn't imagine. As investigators collected evidence, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold: traces of accelerant leading from the small shed near the fence to his house. Someone had planned this. Someone had wanted this. His gaze swept the neighborhood, eyes narrowing. He knew who it was. The neighbors were divided. Some approached him cautiously, offering condolences, bringing coffee or blankets. Others avoided him completely, afraid of getting involved in what had quickly become the neighborhood scandal of the year. Marcus didn't care. He focused on the facts, on the smell of gasoline in the air, on Rex's tense growls at every passerby. Meanwhile, Karen made her rounds, talking to neighbors, planting seeds of doubt. It's such a shame, she murmured. I hope Marcus is okay. Though sometimes I wonder if accidents happen when people don't follow rules. Her insinuations were subtle but effective. Those who didn't know Marcus personally began to whisper, wondering if he might have somehow caused the fire himself. Marcus, however, didn't let it get under his skin. His military training kicked in. Gather information, assess threats, plan the next move. He began documenting everything: the smell, the burn patterns, neighbors' statements, even Karen's suspicious behavior. Every detail would matter in court. The media caught wind quickly. A local reporter arrived, camera crew in tow, capturing the smoldering ruins, and Marcus standing stoically beside Rex. Veteran loses home in mysterious fire, the headline read. The reporter asked Marcus how he felt, how he would rebuild if he suspected anyone. Marcus's response was measured, precise. I'll let the authorities investigate, he said. But everyone should know that homes aren't just buildings. They're memories. And someone took mine deliberately. The story spread fast. Social media lit up with speculation. People were outraged. Many stood behind Marcus, lauding his composure and service to the country. Others, influenced by Karen's subtle manipulations, quietly wondered if there was more to the story. Through it all, Marcus noticed Rex behaving unusually. The dog wasn't just protective, he was alert, sniffing, reacting to patterns Marcus couldn't see. Rex pawed at the remnants of the fence where the accelerant trail had been discovered. It was as if the dog could sense the culprit, even without proof. Marcus made a mental note. Rex would be a key ally, not just in protection, but in exposing the truth. Days passed, and the tension only grew. Karen continued her HOA maneuvers, convening meetings, subtly discrediting Marcus while pretending to act as a concerned neighbor. She spread rumors about Marcus being difficult or volatile, painting him as someone whose military service had left him unstable. It was classic psychological warfare, but Marcus had faced worse. Meanwhile, investigators found more evidence pointing to deliberate arson. Fingerprints on gas cans left near the scene, security footage from a nearby neighbor showing a figure moving suspiciously in the hours before the fire. Marcus's heart clenched when he saw the footage. A slender silhouette, familiar posture, deliberate movements. His suspicions solidified. Karen had crossed the line. Even so, Marcus remained calm, knowing that confrontation in anger would only play into Karen's hands. He focused on strategy, documenting everything meticulously. He worked closely with the investigators, providing a timeline of events, pointing out inconsistencies in Karen's statements, and gathering witness testimonies. At night, Marcus would sit by the ruins with Rex, memories flooding back. The first time he'd brought Rex home from military service, the birthday parties in the backyard, the quiet evenings watching the sunset from his porch. Each memory stung like a fresh wound, but also fueled his resolve. Someone had tried to destroy not just his home, but his dignity, his peace. He would not let them succeed. By the end of the week, the neighborhood had taken sides. Some rallied around Marcus, offering support and assistance. Others quietly aligned with Karen, fearful of her influence and power. The divide was clear, but one thing was undeniable. Marcus was not backing down. And somewhere, in her pristine home with manicured lawns and polished furniture, Karen Whitefield watched the unfolding chaos with a thin smile. She thought she had won, that the fire, the rumors, and the fear had given her the upper hand. But Marcus had something she couldn't touch: integrity, discipline, and the unshakable bond with Rex. As Marcus prepared to take his first steps toward justice, he knew the road ahead would be long, complicated, and fraught with tension. But for the first time in days, he felt a flicker of control returning. This wasn't just about property anymore. It was about truth, accountability, and proving that no amount of malice could break a man who had survived war and lost nothing but things that could be rebuilt. The courtroom loomed in the near future, an inevitable battlefield. Karen thought she had a head start, but Marcus was ready. And Rex was ready to expose the darkness lurking behind the HOA's polished facade. The stage was set, the players in place, and the tension in the neighborhood had reached a boiling point. The fire had destroyed a house, but it had ignited something far more powerful: the fight for justice and the unveiling of a truth no one could ignore. The acrid smell of smoke still clung to Marcus's clothes even days after the fire. Every time he closed his eyes, the memory returned: the sudden flare, the roaring heat, the blinding orange glow consuming everything he had built. But the night itself had been far more than a blur of flames. In the quiet moments before dawn, Marcus replayed it, every detail sharp in his mind, as if reliving a mission where survival wasn't guaranteed. It had begun with a faint rustle outside his bedroom window. At first, he thought it might be a raccoon or a neighbor passing by, but Rex's low growl warned otherwise. The dog's ears were pinned forward, muscles tense, every fiber alert. Marcus had trained with Rex for years. In the military, no human or canine instinct was wasted. Something was out there, and it wasn't natural. He had grabbed his flashlight and his bat, creeping silently toward the living room. Through the sliding glass door, he had seen it, a figure moving deliberately. Near the garage, a gas can clutched in one hand. His stomach had dropped. Arson. Someone had planned this. Someone had wanted to destroy him. Rex barked sharply, a command and a warning all at once. Marcus had whispered, "Rex, stay." But the dog didn't obey in the usual way. He assessed, calculated, and prepared to defend. and then the first sparks erupted near the corner of the garage. Marcus lunged, screaming, "Fire! Get out!" The acrid smoke hit him immediately, stinging eyes, scorching lungs, and burning hair. Flames engulfed. Deciding in seconds, memories flashed. His military medals, childhood photographs, the books he had read to his nieces and nephews, everything he had loved. Marcus grabbed Rex's leash and bolted through the side gate, coughing, eyes watering, ears ringing with the crackling of fire. Neighbors had begun to gather, drawn by the light and heat, some shouting, others frozen in disbelief, and somewhere, in the shadows, a figure had lingered, watching the destruction unfold with a satisfaction Marcus didn't want to name aloud. By the time the fire department arrived, Marcus and Rex were coughing, soot-streaked, and exhausted. Firefighters moved efficiently, spraying water, shouting commands, but the house was already lost. Marcus could only stand at a distance, watching decades of memories reduced to ashes. The police were already taking statements when he noticed something chilling. A trail of accelerant led from the small shed near the fence straight to the house. Someone had planned this meticulously. Marcus's heart sank further as he realized the extent of the threat. Whoever had done this had studied his routines, his movements, and his vulnerabilities. Karen Whitefield had arrived shortly after the chaos. Marcus saw her approach with calculated calm, sunglasses in place, voice dripping faux concern. "Marcus, I can't believe this happened," she said. But Marcus saw through it instantly. The same person who had filed complaint after complaint about his lawn and his K9, the same person who had spread whispers through the neighborhood, was here now pretending to be horrified. He said nothing at first, only watched her, letting the firelight illuminate the mask she wore. In his heart, he knew. Karen had crossed the line. This wasn't petty HOA power anymore. This was deliberate, targeted hate. The investigation moved quickly. Police collected fingerprints from the gas cans and debris. Security footage from a neighbor's camera revealed a shadowy figure moving near Marcus's garage in the dead of night. The silhouette matched Karen's frame and posture. Marcus's suspicions hardened into certainty. Yet he remained calm, knowing that confrontation without proof could ruin everything. Instead, he focused on strategy. He documented everything meticulously: timelines, witness accounts, smoke patterns, Rex's behavior, even Karen's subtle movements captured by neighbors. Every detail could help expose the truth in court. Amidst the chaos, Marcus also found a strange sense of focus. The fire had taken his house, but it hadn't broken his spirit. Every soldier learns that survival isn't just about avoiding harm. It's about responding, assessing, and taking action when necessary. And Marcus had a plan. Rex remained by his side, eyes sharp, sensing the lingering danger. Even when the smoke cleared and the flames died down, the dog wouldn't relax. He sniffed the burned fence, pawed at the debris, and growled at every passerby with suspicion. Marcus knew Rex wasn't just protecting him physically. He was a living witness, attuned to details humans might miss, ready to testify in the only way a K9 could: by alerting, by guiding, by standing as a silent sentinel. Neighbors were polarized. Some offered support, blankets, food, comforting words, while others whispered, intimidated by Karen's influence. Some even suggested Marcus might have overreacted, or implied he had contributed to the fire himself. But Marcus knew better. He had faced real threats in war, and he recognized malice when it came with such precision. The media soon caught wind Local news crews arrived, filming Marcus and Rex amidst the smoldering ruins. The headline the next day screamed, "Veteran's home destroyed in mysterious fire. Community divided." Marcus gave measured interviews, careful to speak only facts, to avoid giving Karen or the media any false narrative. He focused on his bond with Rex, the details of the investigation, and the obvious signs of deliberate arson. Karen, meanwhile, continued her performance, subtly planting doubt. She spoke to neighbors, suggesting Marcus might be stressed from his military service or overreacting to normal neighborhood issues. Marcus knew the tactics all too well. Discredit. The target, so division, appear innocent. But the evidence, fingerprints, accelerants, footage, was mounting, and he intended to see justice done. By the end of the week, the police had gathered enough to start formal questioning. Marcus met with investigators daily, recounting every detail of the fire, every interaction with Karen, and every strange occurrence in the neighborhood leading up to the incident. The slow grind of the investigation was frustrating, but Marcus welcomed it. Patience was part of the plan. The truth, after all, was on his side. At night, he would sit beside the ruins with Rex, memories of the home flooding back. The first, birthday parties, the quiet evenings on the porch, the laughter of family. Each recollection stung, but also fueled his resolve. Whoever had done this had underestimated Marcus's strength, his discipline, and his bond with Rex. And so, as the eager neighborhood simmered with whispers, as Karen plotted her next move, Marcus prepared. The fire had destroyed his home, but it had ignited something else, a determination to uncover the truth, to confront malice with justice, and to protect what could not be burned: his spirit, his honor, and his unbreakable bond with Rex. The HOA courtroom loomed ahead, inevitable, a battleground where Karen's facade would clash with Marcus's integrity. The arson was only the beginning. The real fight, Marcus knew, was just about to start. The morning light did little to ease the lingering tension in the Johnson neighborhood. Marcus Johnson stood beside Rex at the edge of the burned lot, watching as investigators moved through the smoldering remains with methodical precision. Every footprint, every burned shard, every piece of debris was catalogued, photographed, and analyzed. Marcus felt both relief and apprehension. The forensic evidence could finally prove what he had long suspected, but only if it told the truth. Detective Ramirez, a seasoned investigator with sharp eyes and an unwavering calm, approached him. "Marcus, we've collected accelerant residues from multiple points around the house. The burn patterns, the chemical traces, they indicate intentional arson, not an accident." Marcus nodded, a mixture of satisfaction and grim determination settling over him. "Do you have anything that points to the person responsible?" he asked, his voice steady. Ramirez's gaze lingered for a moment before he said, "There's more. Fingerprints on the gas cans, security footage from your neighbor's porch camera, and a phone ping placing someone near your property around the estimated time the fire started." Marcus felt a flicker of vindication. The evidence was stacking up, and the pieces were pointing toward one person: Karen Whitefield. He had suspected her from the start. The petty complaints, the malicious rumors, the obsessive attention to his life. But now, it was no longer conjecture. It was proof. Meanwhile, Karen had resumed her usual posturing, arriving at the HOA office in pristine attire, her composure unshakable. "Marcus has been through a lot," she told anyone who would listen, carefully crafting a narrative of herself as a concerned, shocked neighbor. It's a terrible tragedy. I hope he recovers soon." Her words were measured, almost rehearsed, but Marcus could see through the veneer. The malicious satisfaction in her eyes when she thought no one was. Looking told the true story. Neighbors were polarized. Some came to Marcus with condolences, some with offers to help rebuild, and some, quietly, cautiously, began to question Karen's involvement after seeing the mounting evidence. Rumors and whispers began to turn against her. The community, realizing that appearances were deceptive and malice often hid behind a smile. The investigation intensified. Forensic analysts confirmed that the accelerant traces matched the type of fluid found in gas cans stored in Karen's garage. The fingerprints matched her hands. The security footage, though grainy, revealed a silhouette moving deliberately near Marcus's property in the hours leading up to the fire. And phone records confirmed Karen's proximity at the exact time the blaze started. Marcus compiled all this information meticulously, creating a detailed dossier. Every shred of evidence was documented, annotated, and cross-referenced. He worked closely with Detective Ramirez and the investigators, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Rex stayed close throughout, his keen senses picking up details that human eyes might miss. The faint scent of gasoline lingering in areas Karen had touched, the broken twigs near the fence, the subtle signs of forced entry that confirmed premeditation. The media caught wind of the evidence leak. Headlines began to shift. Evidence points to deliberate arson in veteran's home fire. HOA president under scrutiny after neighborhood blaze. Marcus remained stoic during interviews, letting the facts speak for themselves, while Karen maintained her composed facade, planting doubts and attempting to sway public opinion. Karen, realizing the walls were closing in, became more desperate. At HOA meetings, she subtly tried to discredit Marcus, implying he had exaggerated the incident, that he was unstable due to his military service, and that the fire could have been accidental. She spoke in soft tones, choosing words carefully, to plant seeds of doubt without outright lying, though every neighbor who knew the truth could see through it. Marcus anticipated these maneuvers. He had trained for high-stakes situations where manipulation and deception were part of the game. He prepared for the courtroom by gathering not only physical evidence, but also eyewitness testimonies. A few neighbors had seen Karen near his property, late at night, and some had overheard heated arguments between her and Marcus during HOA meetings. Every statement was recorded, every detail ready for cross-examination. Despite the growing pressure, Marcus remained composed. He spent evenings at temporary accommodations with Rex, going over timelines, evidence logs, and possible courtroom scenarios. He envisioned how Karen would act, how she would try to manipulate the jury, and how he could counter every move with calm, unassailable facts. Rex's presence was a grounding force, a living reminder of loyalty and truth. The turning point came when a local journalist, who had been following the story closely, uncovered a recorded voicemail from Karen, left inadvertently on a neighbor's phone. In it, her voice was sharp, urgent, and unmistakably full of malice. "Make sure Marcus regrets every complaint. I'll show him what happens when people think they can fight me." Marcus listened to the recording in stunned silence. This was the evidence that could not be twisted or denied. Karen's words, her intent, and her premeditation were all captured in that single message. Finally, the decision was made to move forward with formal charges. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The battle was far from over, but the foundation was solid. Karen's lies were beginning to unravel. The truth was emerging, and the courtroom the ultimate stage for justice, was on the horizon. That evening, Marcus walked by the ruins of his home one last time before leaving for temporary housing. The blackened skeleton of the house stood as a grim reminder of what had been lost. But in his heart, Marcus felt a growing sense of purpose. The fire had destroyed walls and memories, but it had not destroyed him, nor his resolve for justice. Rex padded beside him, alert and protective, ready for whatever came next. As Marcus looked across the street at the neighbors watching from behind curtains, he realized something profound. Karen may have tried to burn his home, but she could not burn his dignity, his courage, or his unwavering commitment to truth. The evidence had emerged, the stage was set, and the courtroom battle was inevitable. Justice was no longer a distant hope. It was a coming storm, and Marcus was prepared to face it head-on. The courthouse loomed large as Marcus Johnson stepped out of the car, Rex at his side. The early morning sun reflected off the polished stone, glinting like a warning that today nothing could be taken lightly. News crews swarmed the area, microphones thrust forward, flashes capturing every moment. Marcus ignored them, focusing instead on the looming wooden doors of the courtroom. This was more than a trial. It was the reckoning of years of harassment, malice, and the deliberate destruction of everything he held dear. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Neighbors, journalists, and spectators filled every seat. The tension was palpable. Whispers spread like wildfire. Would Karen Whitefield's carefully maintained facade hold? Could Marcus withstand the scrutiny, the manipulation, the attempts to paint him as the villain? Karen entered next, immaculate in her tailored suit, sunglasses shielding her eyes even indoors. She carried herself with the air of a queen entering her domain, smiling politely at supporters, nodding at familiar faces. To anyone who did not know the truth, she appeared composed, sympathetic, the victim of circumstance. But Marcus saw through it. Every smirk, every flicker of satisfaction, when cameras weren't pointed directly at her, told the real story. The judge called the court to order. Marcus's attorney, a seasoned professional with a steady demeanor, stood and began presenting the case. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said, "we are here not to speculate or assume, but to present facts, facts that show a deliberate act of destruction, a violation of trust, and a targeted attack against a man who served his country with honor." The prosecution laid out the evidence meticulously. Fingerprints on the gas cans, accelerant residues traced directly to containers found in Karen's garage, phone records placing her near Marcus's home during the night of the fire, and eyewitness testimonies, all pointing to one conclusion: the arson was deliberate, premeditated, and executed with malice. Karen's defense tried to undermine the evidence, suggesting accidental causes, the possibility of unknown intruders, and even attempting to paint Marcus as unstable due to his military service. Every argument was met with calm rebuttal, facts countering speculation. Marcus remained silent, composed, his eyes unwavering, his body steady, his mind focused. Rex lay quietly beside him, a sentinel of loyalty and truth. The dog had been brought in as emotional support, but his presence carried an unspoken weight. Jurors noticed his alert posture, the way he subtly followed Marcus's gaze, as if aware of the malicious energy in the room. When the prosecution mentioned Rex's behavior on the night of the fire, the growls, the barking, the protective instincts, the courtroom murmured. A K-9 trained alongside a veteran, observing and responding to threats no one else could detect. Karen's calm began to fracture as witness after witness recounted events. A neighbor testified seeing her moving suspiciously near Marcus's garage hours before the fire. Another shared overheard threats and complaints, painting a pattern of obsession and malice. When the phone recording surfaced, Karen ranting about making Marcus regret every complaint. The room fell into stunned silence. The jury leaned forward. Even Karen's supporters felt a flicker of doubt. Throughout it all, Marcus did not raise his voice, did not lash out, did not attempt to humiliate Karen. His dignity spoke louder than any argument. His years of service, his sacrifices, his composure in the face of danger, all were evident in his presence. And Rex, ever vigilant, reinforced it. When a juror leaned forward, Rex's steady gaze seemed to say, "This man speaks truth. Trust him." Karen tried to maintain control, interjecting when allowed, questioning evidence, and attempting to sway the jury with feigned innocence. But cracks appeared. Small gestures, hesitant words, a tremor in her voice when confronted with undeniable proof. Marcus's attorney pounced gently but firmly, letting the evidence do the talking. The prosecution's closing argument was a study in precision. "This was not an accident," the attorney said, voice ringing in the room. "This was a deliberate act of hate, a calculated attack on a man who served his country and built a life of peace. Karen Whitefield tried to destroy not just a home, but a life. The evidence is clear. The truth cannot be denied." Marcus remained seated, eyes forward, breathing steady. Rex shifted slightly, leaning against him, sharing the weight of the moment. The jury would deliberate soon, but in Marcus's heart, he already felt the strength of justice in motion. The fire had destroyed property, but it had ignited a chain of truth that could not be extinguished. As the courtroom emptied for the day, Karen shot a glance at Marcus, one of frustration, disbelief, and faint fear. For the first time, her carefully constructed world seemed vulnerable. Marcus met her gaze with unwavering calm. No words were exchanged, but the message was clear. The fight is not over. But I will see this through. Outside, reporters swarmed, trying to capture statements, but Marcus walked with Rex through the courthouse steps with silent determination. The media would interpret, speculate, and sensationalize, but Marcus knew the truth. Karen's actions had been deliberate, malicious, and criminal. The courtroom would bear witness to that truth, and justice would follow. The first day of the trial ended, but the tension remained thick in the air. Neighbors whispered among themselves, some supportive, some uncertain, some shaken by the unfolding drama. One thing was certain: the quiet veteran and his loyal K9 were not easily defeated. And Karen's days of manipulation, deception, and hidden malice were numbered. The stage was set. Evidence, witnesses, and undeniable proof had been presented. The jury had seen the stark contrast between Marcus's composed dignity and Karen's unraveling facade. And Rex, faithful, alert, unwavering, stood as a silent symbol of truth and loyalty. Tomorrow, the courtroom would reconvene and the battle would intensify. But Marcus felt a quiet confidence. The fire had taken his home, but it had not taken his resolve. Karen had tried to break him, to intimidate him, to hide behind appearances, but the truth, as it often does, was emerging, unstoppable. Justice, Marcus knew, was coming, and when it did, it would burn brighter than any fire Karen had started. The courtroom was tense as Marcus Johnson entered, Rex at his side, both calm yet alert. Every eye in the room seemed to follow them: the jury, spectators, even Karen Whitefield, who had arrived looking composed but with a faint edge of unease in her posture. The evidence presented so far had been damning, but the prosecution had saved the most shocking revelation for today. Marcus's attorney stood, preparing to call a final witness, someone who had remained in the shadows until now. A local teenager, shy but resolute, stepped forward. He held a phone in his hand, the screen showing a recorded video from the night of the fire. The footage had been captured unintentionally by a security camera that Karen had overlooked. The courtroom fell silent as the video played. It showed Karen moving deliberately with a gas can toward Marcus's house, her movements precise, her intent undeniable. She paused briefly near the shed, checking to ensure no one was watching, then returned to the garage with the accelerant in hand. The jurors' eyes widened as the timeline aligned perfectly with the investigators' findings. Karen's face went pale, the mask of composure slipping for the first time. Her lips pressed together, eyes darting nervously as the video replayed. Marcus sat calmly, watching her reaction, Rex alert by his side, sensing the shift in energy. The evidence was irrefutable. The defense attorney attempted to intervene, arguing technicalities, claiming the footage was inconclusive and suggesting it could have been manipulated. But the prosecution countered smoothly, providing metadata, timestamps, and expert verification. Every challenge Karen could raise was dismantled with precision. Marcus's attorney then presented the phone recording from the neighbor, the one where Karen's voice had revealed her malice. Make sure Marcus regrets every complaint. I'll show him what happens when people think they can fight me. The courtroom gasped. Karen's hands trembled slightly, her composure cracking as the jury absorbed the weight of her words. Throughout the proceedings, Marcus remained stoic. He didn't gloat. He didn't jeer. His dignity spoke louder than any argument. The contrast between Marcus's calm, focused presence and Karen's unraveling facade was stark. Even the jurors noticed it, their attention fixed on the undeniable evidence of intent, malice, and premeditation. Rex, sensing the tension, stayed close to Marcus, his presence a reminder of loyalty, truth, and protection. When the prosecutor highlighted Rex's behavior the night of the fire, the barking, the growling, the way he had attempted to protect Marcus, the jurors nodded subtly, appreciating the K-9's role as both companion and witness. Karen tried to respond, her voice shaky, defensive, a shadow of the confident HOA president she had appeared to be. I don't know. It was an accident, she stammered, though every piece of evidence contradicted her claim. Her lies, manipulation, and pretense had been exposed. The tension in the room was palpable. Every observer understood the magnitude of the revelation. The community, the jury, even the media outside were on edge. Marcus had been vindicated at every step, and Karen's malice was now undeniable. The judge called a brief recess, and murmurs filled the courtroom. Marcus remained seated, Rex at his feet, the dog's eyes alert, ears perked, ready for whatever came next. The hallway outside was crowded with whispers, neighbors, reporters, and curious onlookers speculating about the outcome. As the courtroom reconvened, the final testimonies and statements were delivered. The prosecution summarized the case with clarity and precision. Deliberate arson, premeditated malice, and intentional destruction of property. Every witness, every piece of evidence, every expert analysis reinforced the narrative. Karen's defense faltered under the weight of truth. Her attempts to manipulate the narrative, to cast doubt, to appear innocent, collapsed as the evidence stacked inexorably against her. Her facade had been shattered in front of the jury and the public alike. Finally, the judge instructed the jury to deliberate. Marcus and Rex returned to their seats, waiting. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by the occasional shuffling of papers, the distant murmur of voices outside, and the soft padding of Rex's paws on the floor. Marcus reflected on the journey. The fire, the harassment, the investigations, the manipulation, the preparation for the courtroom battle. Every moment had led to this point, and through it all, Rex had been his steadfast companion, sensing danger, protecting him, and even playing a subtle role in reinforcing the truth. Hours passed. The jury returned, and the room went silent once more. The foreperson stood, holding the verdict. Karen's face had paled further, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Marcus remained calm, eyes forward, heart steady, Rex sitting loyally at his side. The foreperson's voice rang out, "We, the jury, find the defendant, Karen Whitefield, guilty of arson and malicious destruction of property." A hush fell over the courtroom. Marcus's shoulders relaxed slightly, a wave of relief washing over him. Justice had prevailed, and the malicious architect of his suffering had been held accountable. Karen's eyes filled with disbelief and fury, her carefully constructed world crumbling. Outside, supporters and neighbors congratulated Marcus, praising his composure, resilience, and dedication to truth. Rex received countless pats and words of admiration. The loyal K9 who had silently witnessed and participated in the journey toward justice. Marcus didn't speak much. He didn't need to. The verdict itself was the culmination of everything. The fire, the struggle, the courtroom battles, and the unwavering bond between man and dog. Justice had been served. That night, Marcus and Rex sat quietly near the ruins of what was once his home. The fire had destroyed his property, but it had not destroyed his spirit, his resolve, or his dignity. Karen's malice had been exposed, and the neighborhood had witnessed the triumph of truth and integrity. Rex rested his head on Marcus's knee, eyes closing as the day's tension melted away. Marcus stroked the dog's fur, a mixture of gratitude and relief in his heart. Together, they had faced fire, lies, manipulation, and fear, and had emerged victorious. For Marcus Johnson, the quiet veteran who had survived war abroad and malice at home, the fire had been a trial. But with Rex at his side and justice achieved, he could finally envision rebuilding his life, stronger, wiser, and unshakably steadfast. The courtroom had emptied, leaving behind the echoes of verdicts, whispers of triumph, and the silent relief of a long-fought battle finally concluded. Marcus Johnson stepped out into the warm sunlight, Rex padding loyally beside him. The crisp air carried a mix of city noise and the subtle calm of a neighborhood returning to normal. Marcus allowed himself a deep breath, something he hadn't done in weeks. The fire had destroyed his home, but it had not destroyed him. And now, with Karen Whitefield's malice legally exposed and justice served, Marcus could begin the slow process of rebuilding, not just his house, but his life. Neighbors gathered nearby, offering congratulations, hugs, and words of support. Some had been skeptical before, but the courtroom revelations had changed everything. Eyes once filled with doubt now held admiration. Among them, old friends and new allies approached Marcus, bringing plans, ideas, and assistance to restore the home he had lost. Rex, ever vigilant, sniffed the air, wagging his tail slightly as if understanding that the danger had passed. Marcus crouched, running a hand over the German shepherd's soot-streaked coat. "We did it, boy," he murmured. "We faced it all and came out stronger." Rex pressed his head against Marcus's shoulder. The simple act of loyalty and comfort, saying more than words ever could. The reconstruction of Marcus's home began immediately. Volunteers from the neighborhood and local organizations offered hands, materials, and expertise. What had once been destroyed by fire would now be rebuilt with care, dedication, and community spirit. Every nail hammered, every wall painted, and every window replaced was a testament to resilience, not just of structures, but of hearts and determination. Marcus also dedicated time to emotional healing. The trauma of the fire, the harassment, and the trial had left scars, but each day he focused on what mattered: family, friends, and Rex. He began mentoring youth in the neighborhood, sharing lessons of courage, resilience, and integrity, reminding them that justice, even when delayed, is never denied. Rex became a local hero in his own right. News outlets highlighted the dog's role in the investigation, the barking that alerted Marcus, the protective instincts that guided him away from harm, and the unwavering presence that had supported Marcus through every dark moment. Children in the neighborhood would visit, patting Rex and listening intently as Marcus told the story of their bond, their trials, and their victory. One evening, as the sun set, casting golden light across the partially rebuilt home, Marcus stood beside Rex on the porch. He looked over the neighborhood, seeing families returning to their routines, laughter echoing in the streets, and a sense of peace slowly taking root. The fire had tried to take everything, but it had failed. Marcus's strength, his integrity, and his unwavering bond with Rex had carried him through. The story of that fire, of Karen's malice, and of the courtroom drama spread beyond the neighborhood, inspiring others facing injustice. Marcus's story became a testament to perseverance, to standing firm against wrongdoing, and to trusting in truth and loyalty. Rex remained by his side through it all, a silent guardian whose instincts and loyalty had changed the course of events. In the quiet moments, Marcus would often reflect on the journey. He remembered the night of the fire, the terror, the chaos, the crackling flames. He remembered Karen's smug confidence, the whispers of neighbors, the courtroom battles, and the final revelation that had exposed her true nature. And through it all, he remembered Rex, the steadfast companion who had never wavered, who had protected, alerted, and comforted him. The neighborhood had healed, the courts had spoken, and Marcus had emerged not just unbroken, but stronger. He knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but he had learned an invaluable lesson: courage, patience, and loyalty, both human and canine, could overcome even the darkest of malice. As dusk fell, Marcus and Rex walked through the garden of his rebuilt home, watching the first flowers bloom after months of devastation. The air smelled of fresh paint, earth, and hope. Neighbors waved from their porches. Children laughed in Oit. The distance, and for the first time in weeks, Marcus allowed himself a smile. He knelt down, looking into Rex's eyes. "We made it, buddy. Together." Rex responded with a gentle nuzzle, a reminder of their bond, their shared trials, and their victories. That night, as Marcus lay in his restored bedroom, the warmth of home surrounding him, he reflected on the journey. Fire had tested him, malice had challenged him, but truth had prevailed. And, by his side, always, was Rex, the loyal K9 who had not only protected him, but had helped illuminate the path to justice. Marcus closed his eyes, listening to the soft rhythm of the night and the quiet breathing of his loyal companion. Thus he world was at peace again. Justice had been served, and the fire that had once destroyed had given way to a brighter, stronger future. Together, man and dog had faced the flames, the malice, and the courtroom. And together, they had risen from the ashes.